You don't have to go back as far as anywhere near the original Mini in the late 50s to find the first convertible Mini. Officially, it was actually 1993, still obviously owned by Rover at that stage and not BMW, but quite a gap between the inception of the car and somebody deciding to officially produce a Mini version. I say officially because there were companies that were producing their own versions of convertible Minis. They were taking them and engineering them to have no roof. So it's still around in 2026 almost. Surely that means it's incredible. It must be really good to last that long. There has to be huge heritage in it, legacy. It still must be fun to drive. And yes, I mean, there is nothing surer than the feeling of the wind in your hair as you blast through a country road. And I know what you're thinking. You thought it was going to be impossible for me to feel the wind in my hair, didn't you? Well, it's amazing what €7 on Amazon can do to change all that. And it grows faster than if you go to Turkey. If you go for this 200 brake horsepower Cooper S version, you have to get a red S badge. There's this copper colour over the grille. This grey is an optional paint extra. In fact, you can add different levels to your Mini, which can add quite a few zeros to the cost. This one has €9,000 worth of optional extras. The entry car is from about the mid-40s. And of course, you still get these beautiful round circular eye cute face Mini lamps, but they're quite a bit brighter than they would have been back in 1959. The car sits on 18-inch alloys. There's only a 40 profile, so they're thin enough, but the ride quality is actually quite good, especially compared to the Aceman, which I just can't get along with when it comes to the suspension at all. This is a much, much smaller car, and certainly the footprint of the Cooper, which is just a 3-door Mini now. Then you've got Countryman, Aceman. There's a lot of Minis these days. This roof folds in about 18 seconds, and you can open and close it up to about 40 kilometers an hour, which is quite handy actually if you're on the move and suddenly it starts raining like it often does. However, with the roof down, you actually can't really see out the rear view mirror, which is a bit troublesome. They've kind of toned down the Union Jack elements on the rear lights, but you can get a Union flag on the roof if you want. Goes without saying, not going to happen in Ireland, but for some of you watching the UK, maybe that is a thing. There's another Cooper S badge in red over here. A little bit disappointing that there's no twin exhaust in the centre of the car like the early noughties Cooper S's, which really were great fun to drive. This one kind of lacks the pops and bangs of that era Mini as well. And I know you're thinking, well, the boot, what's the story with that? So there's an 80 kilo limit on this, first of all. So I'm proud to say, actually no, not quite. I'm working on it. The aperture is quite small, but then you can drop the seat. So Mini have at least attempted to make this a somewhat practical car. It's not meant to be a practical car, but they have. And they put Isofix in the front passenger seat as well, bearing in mind that you might have a child in a seat, but you can't squeeze those shell type seats into the rear of the car. A couple of carry-on bags and some shopping and stuff like that. My main issue with the car is I don't know how to close this. So you close it and it doesn't close. And then I'm like, do you slam it? Yeah, but it takes a lot of force. That should be better. I could absolutely sit here and talk about how I miss the physical switches of the noughties generation Mini. They were very, very nice, and they were sort of nods to the original car. They're gone. There are still a few other switches here to at least feel like you're not completely behind a screen, but you are. You've got this OLED screen. The graphics are really, really great on it. Then you've got a couple of different experiences. They used to call them modes, including a go-kart mode, which just holds onto the gears a little bit longer, has a bit more of an engine sound inside, but there's many, many different modes, including an eco mode, and then there's core and everything else. The menus are very, very complicated. BMW like putting complicated menus into cars these days, whether it's their own BMW vehicles or Mini. So you can tap a few dots down here at the bottom and you can genuinely be searching for ages and ages. It does give you a recently used tab. It gives you a vehicle kind of narrower window for specific things, but there's a lot. There's a very good quality camera, which is really, really important because, as I mentioned, when you have the Roof down, you can't see out your rear view mirror particularly well, but you can also kind of hide down and crouch and be at one with the car. One, because it has a lot of adjustability in the seat and the steering, but also I think there's a thing, but maybe it's me, maybe it's men of a certain age. You don't feel like you should have the roof down in a car like this because people will judge you. There's what looks like a designer handbag almost with a Mini logo on the top for keeping things out of prying eyes, which I think is very, very nice. But you could go into Brown Thomas or whatever and buy something that looks like this. Then you've got 2 USB-C charging ports, and there is a wireless pad as well. Charging ports aren't particularly fast. There's a Harman Kardon sound system. It's pretty good, but I've had to whack the bass down because it's too bassy when you have it on full whack. And for these winter days with the roof down, the steering wheel and the heated seats all will keep you nice and toasty, as well as the climate control as well. So there's actually a lot of space up front in the car. The rear is fine for kids, dare I say adults, once you can move the passenger seat a little bit forward, for example. And the glove box would put other cars to shame. For such a small vehicle, there's a load of space in there. So certainly a great 2-seater, and on the odd occasional use for 4 passengers in the car. But look, I like what they've done with the space, and certainly it's just nice to be behind the wheel of something that is a little bit fun to drive. This thing has 200 brake horsepower through the front wheels. I did lie, well not lie, but I left out a bit of information earlier on. Well, you can get a Cooper C, which is 163 brake horsepower, and that starts from mid-30s. But this is the one you want, the Cooper S with the extra horses. The tyres will run out of grip probably long before you will, to be honest, because it is a lot of power going through the front wheels. I think I've got a hair in my eye from that wig, which is never good when you're trying to drive a car. It's just a good, fun car to have a blast around in, to be honest. That's the whole point of it. You can plant it into corners. The turbo does take a little while to spool up, if I'm honest, and certainly the stop-start in traffic is far, far too laggy. But the brakes are good, the handling is very good, and what is very impressive about this car is scuttle shake, which you'd normally associate with convertibles, just because they don't have that rigidness of a coupe or a car with a roof. It's not really present, and it makes the car all the better to drive for it. It has a go-kart mode, which holds on to the revs, changes the engine sound, and just adds to the whole experience, to be honest with you. And I've really enjoyed driving this car this week. It kind of reminds me of the whole point of fun hot hatches. It's just not something I get to experience as much anymore. The brakes are very, very good, even when you leave it perhaps a little bit too late. A little bit of torque steer, which is again what you want. Cars are so composed these days and can be very, very clinical and predictable. This thing might catch you off guard now and again. It's a 7-speed automatic gearbox. Unfortunately, no manual option is available. It is serious fun for a relatively small engine, you know, a 2-litre, 200 brake horsepower, but it's all you need. And that deflector, like, I'm not hanging around here, and that deflector is doing its job very, very well. I would like maybe 1 or 2 more blips out of the exhaust, but that aside, it's a lot of fun. Oh, and despite, you know, having a blast in this car, it's doing about 7.6 litres per 100 kilometres, which I think is quite acceptable, actually, and certainly is much better than something like a Golf GTI. Okay, yes, a GTI is a lot more power and it's heavier, but still. I know I said it takes 17-18 seconds to close, but I know if I don't do it on camera, some people will doubt me and call me a conspiracy theorist. So I'm just going to prove it for you. But it is very, very quick. No hard tops to negotiate with. Just, yeah, it's simple. Also, with the roof up, there's quite a bit of noise from the outside world. So yes, you could live with this car every day But, you know, trucks going by you, the wind, the noise, rain splattering on the outside, they're all things that you have to get used to. Not exclusive to this particular car. It's kind of life with a convertible, to be honest with you, even if you have a hardtop on it. But something to bear in mind. Whoa! I've no doubt some of that noise is augmented. Do I care? No. And kudos to the brake department, because they've done a pretty good job. It's also nice just to hear the whoosh of a turbo spooling up and expelling some noises as you lift off the accelerator. I mean, look, my smile says it all, and it takes a lot to make me smile. If you're familiar with this channel at all, you're probably well used to my resting face at this stage. What a fun little car. Well done, Mini. It's a sad reality in some ways that the fun factor in cars like this, they're just few and far between these days. When something like this comes along, it's really hard not to like it. You could definitely pick holes at the price. From mid €40,000 for a very, very small car will just be a bridge too far for lots of people. It's never going to be a massive selling car, but for those who don't need the space, this is just it. You can use it all year round. It's incredible fun. You can drop the top in seconds on a hot summer's day and just have a blast in a car. And in that sense, it kind of still captures the whole idea of a Mini all these years on. Yes, it's heavier. Yes, it's far more expensive than that car was ever intended to be. But if you don't need space and money's not an object, and you don't want an electric car, Mini Cooper S Convertible. Go knock yourself out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.